Hello, Huskies, and welcome back to another edition of the Taco Latte podcast with Christian and Jamie. I am Jamie, one of your hosts, and I'm here with Christian as well.
Hi, everyone. I am Christian Montesinos, as you know, the director of IPS, and we are with some of our favorite people. I feel like I say that out to a lot of people, but to be fair, I do invite a lot of our favorite people. And that is no exception. Today we have two pillars of the Career Services Department. So if you two want to introduce yourself.
My name is Melissa Michaelson. I help lead the career education side of Career Services. So essentially I help students in one-on-one appointments. We hold a lot of workshops and events to get students ready for their career. What I do in the career fair for the career fair as it relates to the fair is, again, just getting students ready to talk to employers. We help get their resumes all ready to go, personal introductions, everything that they need to know to have a successful interaction with the employers there.
And I'm Jim Desrochers. My title is Director of Employer Relations. But really, I've got one of the coolest jobs on campus. I talk to companies that want to hire Huskies. And so for the companies, it's all about time and money and investing the resources they need to come to campus. And they want to know the most effective way to meet students that can come be future employees for them. And so with Melissa helping students get prepped and me talking to companies, we help do the matchmaking that is the Career Fair and the Career Fest events. So it's a lot of fun to hear the challenges and why companies want to recruit Huskies. And it's about this place, and it's about the attitude of our students and the work ethics of our students. So it's pretty awesome to be part of those conversations on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you guys for being here. And it's nice having our second floor neighbors on an episode, and especially because you guys are probably arguably the leaders of one of the biggest events on campus as well. And so that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about Career Fest and Career Fairs. So let's kick it off with Career Fest. What is Career Fest, and what's the difference between Career Fair?
Mm-hmm. So Career Fest is a series of events that is really intentionally designed to help students get ready for the more formal event that is Career Fair. So Career Fest, students will see tents all across the campus mall where employers will be there waiting for students to come talk to them in an informal way, in an informal setting. So the employers there, all they're expecting essentially is that students just walk up between classes, backpacks on, no resumes are expected, just to practice what it's like to shake hands, make eye contact with a perfect stranger, right? Introduce themselves, ask questions, answer questions, with the hopes that they're getting ready each time they practice that throughout the Career Fest season. They'll gain confidence and the abilities and the skills to be able to do that at the Career Fair, which is a little bit more formal event.
And sort of the reason we came up with the idea is the feedback from students, like Melissa talked about, but also the feedback from companies. These recruiters want students to put their best foot forward and give them the best chance of finding out if they're the right person for their job and for that company. And if the student's so nervous that they can't talk, it doesn't work for anybody. And it's frustrating for the recruiters, who are nice people who just want to be able to have you have a coherent conversation and be able to shake hands and not devolve into a puddle, right? And so the feedback from the companies are, can you create a situation where we could just casually chat without the pressure of this interview and the handshake and whatever else? And so it evolved into this Career Fest ideas, and the idea of it being just come as you are, just spend 15 minutes chatting to us. A lot of students felt the pressure of, if you go to an info session, it's an hour long. Like, if you leave early, the company thinks you're not interested. Or if you show up late, the company thinks you're not interested. And there's lots of real world reasons why you might be late or you might have to leave. Right? And so creating this cultural event that is, pop in, say, hey, what do you guys do? I never heard of you before. And that's acceptable, which is far different than this, here's my resume, and I take a half step back and I wait for you to read it before I say anything else. Like that, career fairs are just unique in that setting, and the Career Fest are more like, hey, what's going on? It's like going to the party, right? What's happening, right? And companies have evolved to bring kind of cool and fun things over the years, where I think they get it too. Like, if the student can't relax, they're going to have a horrible conversation. If you can relax and talk to somebody at a fest event, and then you go see the same person at the career fair the next day, boy, it's far easier. There's a lot less sweat that happens when you talk to the person that's like, good to see you again, Christian.
Yeah.
Hey, I know we talked yesterday about a job in blah, 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 blah. And you're like, yeah, we did. It was great. I came back because, like, so we've given students the sort of an easy button to get switched on in those conversations, and it's really cool to see it working.
Yeah, and I think it's a really great reminder for students that these recruiters are people too. Like, they are real people. They're not interrogating or interrogators. They're just there to have conversations. And the Career Fest, I feel like, introduces that idea to students and really calms their nerves. In fact, a lot of the employers that come are alumni from Michigan Tech, right? And so that there's this automatic potential comfort level and connection right away.
Right.
When do these things take place? We do have a lot of listeners that just got here. They have a lot of international students that their whole purpose for being here is not only their education, but you guys know it better than we do, in the sense that getting employment is that number one focus, that number one drive. So I have sort of three questions, so bear with me. But the first one is, when do these things take place? How many employers do we normally see at both of these events? And kind of the more challenging question is, why is it beneficial for international students to partake in these events?
I think Jim is the perfect one to talk about dates.
Yeah. So I think we'll talk about the dates first. The idea being that, to use a sports analogy, right? If the career fair is like the Super Bowl or the championship or the whatever, we made all the fest events be before that, because the idea is the best benefit for the students is to talk to these people before they get to the fair. So if these are the playoffs and the fair is the championship, whatever. So they happen throughout the month of September. And essentially, we never have them on a Monday or a Friday, or we try not to have them on a Monday or Friday because the employers need to travel. So you'll usually see them on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday and sprinkled throughout campus, and one a week or two a week. They always run from 11 to 2. And the idea usually is that if a student's walking across campus and they see a whole bunch of tents, you go head towards the tents because something's happening. Right? We've got schedules on Handshake and all sorts of places that have all the details about who's coming and all the rest. But the hope is that you just say, oh, well, that's cool, I wonder what's going on, and you just head towards the tents and you chase the bright lights, right? We have them near the center of campus, usually somewhere near the library or the MUB, right, in that general area, because that's central to most people. That assumes you're on campus, but and we'll send emails out to students with all the details. In general, we see between 8 and 10 and 12 companies at any one of these fest days. Sometimes they get a little bit bigger than that. Around the career fair, things are a little different, but we've done them with like 4 companies before, and the feedback from the students wasn't good. With 10, 12 companies there as a student, you can visit everybody for a couple of minutes. You can see everybody at the event. You might not know about some of these companies, and that's fine too, right? So that's the structure, that's the logic, and it's Houghton. September is nice enough weather, usually, that they're outside. We do have rain locations for these things. We pray we never have to use them, but that's the kind of the layout.
And as far as international students go, and the function and the reasons why they should attend is, first of all, I think what it does is gives them an opportunity to get acclimated to what it's like to be kind of the American recruiting processes, right? And so I think it is a really great low stakes way to help them kind of get a sense of what it's like to be hired by an American company or to talk to an American recruiter. Because I have heard many students say that it's very different getting hired in many of their home countries than it is here in the U.S. And so I think the whole process is important, actually, because first of all, they're very aware of having a resume that is, again, geared toward the American recruiting audience, and resumes in the U.S. are different than other places in the world, so they're learning a lot about that entire process. The other thing that I think our students, international students, become more aware of then is which companies are hiring or offering OPT, CPT, or any kind of sponsorship. All of that information can be filtered out through Handshake as well. So on Handshake, you can look at the employers who are attending the fair and sort them by who is offering OPT, CPT. And right now, from my latest count, there's approximately maybe just shy of 100 companies who did indicate on their registration that they're willing to offer CPT, OPT to students. So there are many companies that international students can talk to. I would recommend that even if there is a company that has like a big name and has a great reputation, not get caught up in that, but instead look at if they're offering CPT, OPT, because some of these big companies do not offer that. So I would hate to see you standing in line, a really long line, to talk to a recruiter from one of these big name companies only to get there and they tell you that they're not offering CPT, OPT. So that's just my suggestion and recommendation that students really pay attention to who is offering that and focus on those companies.
And using Handshake is obviously a great resource, but in your department or anywhere else around campus, are there any other resources or events that are held in order for the students to prep for Career Fest and Career Fair?
Yeah, so next week, September 2nd, it's Tuesday at 5 o'clock in Dow 642. Our office is putting on an international student career fair prep session, so we'll talk about all of the things that I just said and everything that they need to do to get ready for the career fair. That's one big one.
Once again, we're here with Career Services, our sister department, and we both really, you guys work with the larger community of students, not just international students. But when it comes to international students, we really see two different layers within our departments respectively. But I want to get down sort of to the tips that you guys have. You guys see the international students in a different light than we do. I think we handle a lot of the immigration stuff. We kind of get them through their journey of education, the legality of being here. But you guys see them in a much more professional setting. So if I'm an international student, I'm new, and I have that drive to attend these events and have myself be seen, but I am shy, or I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what a resume is. I don't, Jim and you and I spoke beforehand. It doesn't come naturally to talk about myself or brag about myself. What are some things that I can do to prepare? Is it something that I just go to Career Services and you guys will help me out? Or what are some things or tips that students can do to prepare for those things?
Yeah, and I think to add to that, there's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier, there's lots of other potential things that the standard U.S. student doesn't have, right? So now you're in this awkward space with all these other layers on top, and so lots of challenges. There's lots of reasons to be nervous for everybody. I think the interesting part is that the recruiters want you to succeed, so they will work for you as long as you try to help them, right? And so when we talk about, there's lots of seminars we offer, lots of individual meetings you can have with Melissa and the rest of the educational team. And one part I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Career Fest events is every day after the Career Fest is done and we take the tents down, we ask the recruiters to come join us and do a resume review session. And those all happen in the afternoons from 3 to 5. We call them resume review. That's not really accurate. These recruiters will help you if you just have any question. And sometimes, no disrespect to Melissa, but I'd rather not ask her. She works here, but I'll talk to a recruiter. They might give me the same exact advice, but it seems more credible to you. So I think if students come and they're confused, they don't even know where to start, we've got lots of things that they could do, and I think that just coming in and talking to one of our coaches and say, well, try one of these and do one of these and go to this thing, a lot of times will help them figure out what area they want to work on first. So it's awfully hard because it's individualized, right? And your culture and your language and your specific degree might cause challenges that are different than somebody else's. And so we try to offer all these things, and we hope people can see through that, make the connections, find the one that works best for them, right, in their specific situation.
And I think very practically speaking, Michigan Tech's Career Services website has a resume template that they can start with. All you got to do is Google MTU resume template, and it will bring you to our page. Students can get started with just kind of getting an idea of what are the expectations of a U.S. resume. They can use that to start to develop their own, and then they can bring that in for a review into our office. Also, Handshake. Handshake is the place to get onto so that they can see everything that is going on in our office. That is how they're going to make an appointment, one-on-one appointment with a career advisor. It is also, we really recommend that students don't only focus on the career fair for any job opportunities, but that they keep their searches open through Handshake, through LinkedIn, all of those types of avenues as well. So the earlier that they can get started with knowing what that search looks like and just stay on top of it, I think it just becomes easier for them to find an opportunity afterward. It opens up more opportunities rather than just only relying on the career fair for a job or an internship.
I think any student that needs, I think this is true, I think any student that needs some sort of international sponsorship or paperwork or whatever has to work harder than anybody else, which I apologize for or whatever, but that's kind of the rules of the game. And so, at the career fair, if you're talking to a recruiter and they don't have the box check that says they will do CPT sponsorship, arguing with that recruiter at the career fair about why they should or shouldn't, not a good look for anybody, and it's not going to be successful, right? And so I think, we see some of the really big companies, like the brand name companies, they say, we don't hire international students. But one of your friends from last year's working there, and you say, well, you're lying to me, that's not right. Well, the reality of it is a lot of these companies will use third-party staffing agencies and sourcing agencies. So you're not going to work for, Ford, for instance, right? You're going to work for the staffing company that provides you the job with Ford. And so the challenges for these international students is that additional layer of, this is the brand name, I'll be sitting in that brand name's office working in a chair, but I'm actually employed by some other staffing agency as an embedded temporary contract agency, right? And so we've got some of those lists. We know the companies that these companies use, so we will help students, but it's an additional layer, an additional problem to solve, right, essentially. And so it's just harder, and like I say, I feel bad about that, but I don't know that we have a way to make it easier. If we would have, we would have tried.
No, right, and I think the way to make it easier is to inform students on this is the way it works here. Like, this is the system in which you are now needing to operate, and we'll give you the tools and the resources to help you navigate it.
And it definitely sounds during this career fest phase, the warm-up or the pregame, it definitely sounds like there is a lot of resources and preparation for that. So that is awesome. But as Jim mentioned, let's move on to the Super Bowl. Let's move on to the career fair. When is the career fair this year? Where is it? And what should we expect going into it?
Tuesday, September 23rd, from noon until 5. Students get a recess from their classes, so the campus-wide, from 2 to 4. Students are not expected to go to classes. They actually have a recess, so that will make it a lot easier for students to be able to attend. Let's see, there is shuttle service up to the SDC. It's in the SDC, if I didn't already mention that. It's in the multi-purpose room. It also is going to spill over into the varsity gym, not the wood gym, the varsity gym, and then the balcony above the varsity gym. So there's 3 locations that students will be able to find the employers. And
I think we're expecting a little bit less than last year, but close to full again. So probably 370 different recruiting agencies.
Ooh.
And last year, we had over 4,000 students come to the career fair. So essentially more than half our student body goes. It's the biggest party in town for a 5-hour window. But it's noisy and it's crowded and there's all the things that go with it. So it's amazing. But again, we were talking before about students maybe cultural and other, like now if you've got an aversion to crowded spaces that are noisy and bumping, like here you are right in the middle of that trying to talk to companies and let's just crank up that anxiety a little bit higher And we've done things to try to reduce that. So we added a space up at the SCC that we call the quiet room. If you just need to get out of the noise for 5 minutes and just want to, like, there's no judgment, here's a space that the recruiters aren't. And there's some, chairs that you can just sort of rest and relax for a few minutes. We've added things like a first-timers tour if somebody just doesn't know where to start or how to navigate it. We have these tours every so many minutes where we take people around and we walk to an overhead window and we kind of point out. And we offer students a space that's a practice space where they can actually do a handshake and hand a resume to somebody. So if you, if the mechanics of running into the career fair are scary to people and or intimidating, right, which they can be, we do offer some things that say, well, all right, we're going to put some training wheels on and help you get through that initial anxiety. And then part of it is you just sort of have to do it, though, right? Like, you have to go to and you just have to get used to that environment, because there's no way to not have that with the big crowded career fair. And so the fair's on that Tuesday, and then the Monday before the career fair, if you think of Houghton and you're driving up from Detroit, you're going to drive all day on Monday, you're going to try to do something Monday night, you're going to do the fair all day Tuesday, you're going to interview on Wednesday, and then you're going to bug out on Wednesday night to head back to Detroit. And so the recruiters are all over campus, starting about noon on Monday until noon or 5 on Wednesday. And so there's a lot of stuff happening on Monday nights, which will be informational sessions. Again, people hanging out on the campus mall doing stuff, presentations in classrooms, and all the department mixers and the suite dinner. All that stuff happens on Monday night. So Monday night's not quite as crowded or as busy as the Tuesday is, but boy howdy, it's hard to find a spot on campus that doesn't have people in it on Monday night or Monday afternoon and Tuesday too. So.
We really do support, and there's a lot of love and respect towards your department for this mammoth, quite honestly, of an event. But I'm going to say arguably one of the biggest events on campus, because I'm biased towards our events. So I won't say that, but it is probably. Our full division is out there helping and supporting not only career services, but everything that the career fair does. So I want to ask about some tips that you guys have for students going there maybe for the first time. I know that you mentioned having the first timers tour, but I always encourage students, we've always encouraged students that come, even if it's their first term, to go and at least look at how everything is done before you feel comfortable approaching one of the employers. But let's say someone is ready for that next step or feels like they have to. What are some tips about what should they bring with them? How should they dress? How long should they speak to the employer? Or what should they speak to them about?
Yeah, so one at a time. So they should bring with them a polished resume. Some students beforehand, they take a look at what companies they want to talk to. They have their whole game plan is all mapped out. And some people even tailor their resume according to the different industries that are there. So they might have 4 or 5 different versions of their resume. It's not required, but if I don't know, it's kind of nice because the employer who's looking at hundreds and hundreds of resumes, if you can make it easier for them to find the most relevant information as it relates to what they're looking for, you're making their job easier and opening up a potential conversation or maybe an interview. How to dress. I would say business formal to business casual, like somewhere in that range, no less than business casual. If you don't have a tie, but you have a nice shirt, that's fine. If you have a nice shirt and a tie but no jacket, that's fine. It doesn't have to be like a 3-piece suit, but whatever you choose to wear should be clean, it should be pressed. So plan ahead for that to make sure that your clothes are nice and ready. Dark socks. Sometimes we see these dark pants and white socks. Like, keep in mind, wear dark socks rather than the white socks. If you need help finding some clothes to wear, there is a career closet. So right in the ground floor of Wadsworth Hall, there will be, those dates are yet to be announced, but there is a career attire that is available for students for free. So if that is a need, that clothing is available as well. What was the other part of the question?
What are some tips for, okay, I'm dressed, ready to go to Sunday dinner at my family's house. I have all of my versions of my resume. I get up to the line. What do I say?
Yeah, so let me back up ahead of that just a second. And to me, I'm like a list maker, right? Which is a character flaw we can discuss in a different podcast. But
I agree. I am too.
So you do want to know which lines you're going to stand in at the career fair. And Melissa mentioned this before, but doing a little bit of research, looking at the companies, looking at positions, knowing where they're at, and then realistically, you're going to get a chance to talk to 8 to 10 companies at the fair. We talked about the fact there's 370 companies at the fair. You're going to talk to 8 to 10 of them. And you only have so much time, and you know your schedule. So it's a math equation, right? But you know your schedule. And if you say, I want to go stand in a line for a blah, blah, blah company, and if that's going to cost you an hour, that's 4 other companies you're not talking to. So there is a bit of budgeting, right? And when I talk to students, like, they're like, well, this is the company I would die to work for, right? And like, well, don't go to them first then. Go to the 10th one on your list. You don't care if you fall over or throw up while you're talking to this recruiter because you didn't want to work there anyways. Do your practice with somebody that doesn't matter, right, to you personally. And doesn't matter is too strong. But you're not as concerned about it if it goes horribly wrong. Go to them first. Shake it off. If it went horribly, you might be surprised. They might still say, "Hey, you were great," and you're like, "Well, I didn't think that." Right. So, like, there is a little bit of strategy about thinking about that list and saying, "Okay, I'm going to go to number 10 on the list first, and maybe if that went poorly, I'm going to go to number 9 on my list and do it again, right? And now I'm going to turn it around and say, okay, these are the 3 that I really got to talk to." So I think prioritizing your mind, the ones that are most important to you, but also the ones that you're interested in, but you want to use as practice. And you don't want to be rude to those recruiters. They're still giving you some of their valuable time on the other side of the equation. So don't blow it off and make it a joke. You still got to take it seriously. But I think that takes a lot of pressure off the students. But in the fair, you've got to wait in some long lines. You want to make sure that you're being time efficient, because the last thing you want to be doing is standing in a line for the wrong company and go, I didn't want to talk to them. What am I doing, right? So making the list in the career fair is roughly impossible, just because of how crowded and noisy it is. So if you prepare ahead of time, so we've seen lots of times where students are sitting in the hall up there, going through the app, trying to figure out who they should talk to. It's a pretty inefficient place to be. If you put your head down, you sort, and you look for a little bit ahead of time, you can be more efficient list. And Melissa talked about having individualized resumes. That's an amazing strategy. For the students that know what they want, that is amazing, and the recruiters will be impressed that you have a resume that says, I want to work for your company, and you hand it to them, and I want to do this job. It shows you did your homework and your research. You can't do that unless you've
Yeah.
So, and I think the students who really are nervous about the anxiety and the pressure and the situation would do well from having that kind of strategy and help ease some of that. Once they do one of these or 2 of these, then they get it, and they'll be more. You're never 100% comfortable in this thing, but they will be more comfortable, right? Whatever that means to them personally.
So part of that preparation then is to come to practice their personal introduction, right? So typically the recruiter is going to expect you to introduce yourself in about 30 seconds max. So how to use that 30 seconds effectively would be introduce yourself, your name, your major, maybe a little bit about your background as far as what has been your previous experience or education, maybe what are some of the skills you developed previously, what you're currently working on, what you're studying here at Michigan Tech, for instance, and then what you hope to use that for in the future. So if you can kind of bring that story together and then tailor it to that company and what you know that they do, then you can say something like, I'm really looking forward to developing the skills in XYZ, and I can see that your company and this internship is going to help me to do that. Or I can bring the skills that I've learned from my previous experience into this project that I know that your company is working on, and I could see myself being a really great fit, right? So when you can take the time to kind of strategize and think very intentionally about how you want to introduce yourself, and then bring it together for that recruiter, that also leaves a great impression.
And I think one other piece to add to that is these companies will all have their own internal paperwork / computer processes that they need to follow. And they might ask you while you're standing in the line to create an account on their career website. They might have an iPad there, and there's all sorts of various reasons why they have to do these things, but you might be asked to create an account on the jobs.com website for that company, and the recruiter is required to get certain information from you as the person. So it feels like these are very canned, by the books, formulaic questions they're asking you. They are. It doesn't mean that the interview is going horribly wrong. It just means that they need to know this, this, and this before they can enter you into their recruiting database and say that they talked to you. And so know that there's a lot of mechanics, and it'll be different at every company too, so we can't even tell you what it's going to be. Just know that it's going to be, that's all part of the experience in getting in a line and talking to somebody.
Yeah.
To add to that too, students often feel dismissed when a recruiter tells them to, after they've had this really great conversation, the recruiter ends it by saying, okay, go apply online. For many students, that feels like they've been dismissed and that, okay, well, this isn't going anywhere. But in fact, that's part of their HR process. If they want to interview you, you have to apply online, and that's just, it's the steps that they have to take according to their HR rules that have to be done. So it's not a dismissal. It's truly a very literal
Next step in the process.
expectation. Yeah, like you have to do this in order for me to continue talking to you. So I just want to put that out there so that students understand that they're not being dismissed, they're being asked to take it to the next step.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about what happens next, right? So the fair runs till 5 o'clock. And then the recruiters, especially if there's multiple people at a table, will have to sit down and say, who did you talk to that we should interview tomorrow? And so forth and so on. And so between, let's say, Melissa and I are on the same recruiting team, I've got to keep track of the 150 people I talked to over 5 hours, and she's got to do the same. We got to compare notes and say, okay, we want to talk to Christian tomorrow. We want to talk to Jamie tomorrow. Okay. And then you call them and see what time they're available, and I'll call mine to see what, and they're trying to do interview scheduling for the next day, and the interview scheduling for the next day is Wednesday. The challenge, of course, is students have classes on Wednesday, so you've got to balance the fact that you've got a class from 9 to 10, but a recruiter wants to interview at 9 o'clock, and you want the job. Puts a lot of pressure on students, too, to say, I can't because I'm in class, and the recruiter says, you know, hopefully the recruiters are understanding these things, but schedules fill up, right? So we tell students that night to make sure you leave your phone on, right? Make sure that your resume's got a phone number that is contactable, right, that the company can call you at, and you got to answer phone numbers that are not in your phone, right? Your phone might say it's a spam or it's a whatever, because it's just Melissa's cell phone calling Jamie to say, can you come in at 9 o'clock tomorrow for an interview, right? And so that conversation happens, and then you're all excited. You got to make sure you get the time and the place accurately, so you show up in the right time and the right place tomorrow. Because nothing worse than all the rest of this happens, and then you missed it because you went to the wrong building or whatever, right? So we do talk to recruiters and say, if you could text confirmation of the student or email confirmation of the student, you're in this building, in this room, at this time for this meeting, like, you know, we don't want a missed connection during all this, right?
And to make that process a little easier too, we tell students to try to get the name of the person they talk to in line, ask for a business card, write that down, like take notes before you, as soon as you're done with the conversation, step aside, let the next person come in, but write it down. Maybe even a little note on what you talked about, so that when that email does come, that person's name is there and you recognize that name and you will respond to it, or that phone number. So take that moment also to ask for their information, and if they're willing to give it to you, they will.
Yeah. And other than obviously making sure that you're going to the right place for your interview, what are some other day of interview tips, or even during the interview, proper etiquette that you would suggest to students?
So even though you might be running to an interview between classes, dress the part, dress up for the interview. We have gotten some feedback from some of our recruiters saying that is noticeable when students show up in more like street clothes. Some have shown up in pajamas, like kind of thing. So keep that in mind. Another thing is, we do have an interview prep event as well, I think just the week before Career Fair. So attend that for some interview prep tips. So yeah, you can feel at least somewhat prepared. That might again be a little bit different for US recruiting. So any international students might want to, keep that in mind and get an idea of what to expect in a US interview, right? So I think that's front of mind for me.
Yeah.
And I think if the career fair conversation is 5 minutes long, an interview tends to be 30 minutes long. And we talked before about the computers and the systems and the processes. The interview will be more of that, right? The companies will use different methods. There's different techniques on how to do interviews. They're basically trying to interview a whole bunch of people in a day and grade them out and decide which one's the best fit for their company. And so they're going to ask you questions about what you've done in the past and so forth and so on. And they're trying to find a comprehensive way to score that. I think a lot of students are surprised when they walk into the interview room and there's 2 people from a company there. So not all interviews are a one-on-one. A lot of them have gone to 2-on-1 interviews. And there's reasons for companies to want to do that. But it's a little bit intimidating the first time you step into this room. You're ready to talk to, I saw you yesterday and I'm ready to talk to you, and all of a sudden there's somebody else in the room. That's a little bit jarring. It's fine. Those companies have this planned and rehearsed. They understand who's going to say what in these conversations, which questions are going to be asked. They will try to put you at ease. It's pretty easy to say show up early for your interview and be relaxed. But that is a pretty important tip. It's a nervous thing anyways. If you can just find 3 minutes to get there early and sit down, fill up your water cup, get your resume out, just decompress for a second, and when they come out, easier said than done too, right?
Yeah.
But and then the recruiters will want you to be comfortable and relaxed. Some of the companies will actually have people that will sort of meet you while you're waiting and try to get you to settle down and calm down a little bit and ask you about the weather or whatever, right? So try to be relaxed. Whatever you personally do to get in that state of zen or relaxation, not be nervous, because, again, you will perform better if you're calmed down. And again, we talked about this whole ecosystem. In a perfect world, I met you at Fest. Then I went up to the fair and I talked to you, and now we're kind of old friends. Heck, this is the 3rd time we've talked to each other, right? And he wouldn't ask me for this interview if he didn't like one of the other 2 steps, right? And so I think from a student standpoint, you do gain confidence if you get to know people and they say, hey, how's it going? We see this a lot with the BS undergrads too. Like, companies might not be able to hire you when you're a freshman or a first year. Because they can't, but they're impressed that you come and see them again the next year and you build this relationship over time. So the recruiters tend to be pretty constant in this process, and they like to see students again and again. And maybe I could only hire so many people last year and you didn't make the cut. I feel really bad about that. I see you again this year. Like, oh my goodness, this is great. Kristen came back to see me again. And like now you're really old friends because you've seen each other 6 times now over the span of these couple of years, right? So there is a persistence aspect to it that benefits the student too, because you do get more relaxed over time, right? And you feel less threatened by the kind of the format of these schedules and these interviews and the questions that people need to ask you.
I think one of the easiest ways that I have come to explain what is expected in an interview is that if a student keeps in mind that essentially a recruiter is trying to answer 3 questions. Can you do the job? Do you want the job? And are you a good fit for our company or our team? So every question that they ask, the recruiter asks, is going to help them answer essentially those 3 things. And I think that having that kind of bird's eye view helps you not get bogged down with feeling like you have to prepare for any potential question that might come up, because that's quite impossible. You're not going to be able to guess what question they're going to ask you. But if you can kind of formulate in your mind, like, oh, they're asking me a technical question. They're asking me essentially if I can do this job, right? If I have the previous experience to do it. So I think having just kind of that view of an interview might help prepare.
So after everything is done and both of you are just exhausted. Everything is just completely done. What is sort of the proper etiquette of a follow-up? So I've done the interview, I've done all of that, I've taken every single seminar and webinar and everything that you guys have put out. How do I keep my face very fresh to the company after they've interviewed me?
All right. So, and most of the time an interviewer, will let you know the time frame to anticipate a response, right? So what we usually then recommend students do, here again, is the importance of making sure you get the name of the people that interviewed you. Be sure to write that down, get those names. Follow up immediately after the interview with a thank you. You can say, I really appreciated the opportunity to interview with your company. I really enjoyed this part of our conversation. It's like, take notes of maybe something that stood out to you, or I really liked the sound of that project that your company is working on, and I'm excited about being part of that, right? And then, so that's a thank you, acknowledgement of the interview itself. And then typically, I would say the time period in which they respond to let you know whether you have get the job or not is about a week. I mean, generally speaking, right? So give them that week to respond to you. If you haven't heard anything in that week, after that week, it's okay to follow up with an email to be able to say, here I am, so-and-so. Again, I really enjoyed interviewing with you, and I'm just following up to see what is the, what is the word?
What the next steps are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, or the
Status. Yeah.
status of my application is, kind of thing. So finding out, following up that way is fine. If you still don't hear anything back, because there is such of a thing of being ghosted, right? That does happen. It can happen. It will happen. Again, some of these companies and their HR processes need some tweaking. They need some work. You can still follow up maybe 2 weeks later if you haven't heard anything back. But then after that, if you haven't heard anything, it's safe to assume that they've moved on with another candidate, or maybe something else has changed in their processes. But having that initial follow-up and then another 1 or 2 is appropriate. Anything beyond that gets to be a little pesky, it's a little too much.
And I think I would add, there's this whole mechanism of career fairs that's more complicated than even just what's here at Michigan Tech. If you're a company that recruits at Michigan, Michigan State, Michigan Tech, and you have so many openings to allocate between, I can't make offers to anybody until I've gone through all those career fairs. So internally, not only am I collecting resumes from all sorts of great Huskies, but I've got Spartans and Wolverines I got to worry about too. So they might say it's going to take us 6 weeks to get back to you. The students feel like they're getting blown off as part of that too. The reality of it is they can't make offers until they get all the resumes from all these schools. And now they're trying to rank not only the 300 that they talked to in Houghton, but the 300 they talked to at all these other schools. And now they've got 900 resumes they're trying to sort and make offers to just the top 5, whatever top means, right? However they grade that. So if you think of to have a little empathy kind of for the recruiters, they might have had a great conversation with you and they might really like you and think you'd be a great fit for the team, but they still got to bump that against all these other people. And so it does take some time, right? If they say it's going to take us so many weeks, like that's not personal, that is their process, right? So don't feel offended by that. And Melissa talked about getting their names and business cards. Lots of companies will have policies about they hand you a business card that says recruiting at mycompany.com or HR at mycompany.com, where they're not allowed to give you their personal information. That's painful for the student because it feels like you're getting brushed off. But again, they have reasons for that. A lot of the recruiters are actually engineers by day, and they're not trained on all the nuances and the particularities of the human resources process. And if they make a mistake, their company could get sued. So they're like, we don't want that liability. We're going to have all this go through our central HR. So now you just spent all this time building this relationship with me. And then at the end, I go, hey, I love you, but email this generic inbox. So it feels a little bit counter to the whole process, but there's reasons for all these things. The recruiters may not be able to explain it to you as to why. They may not even know why. They're just told it's our policy. You just got to give them the HR business card when they ask you for something. But everything Melissa said is right. You still want to do the follow-up and say, hey, I had a great conversation. In that email to hr@mycompany.com, you could still say, I talked to Joe at the career fair. We talked about this position. We had a great conversation. Please make sure that he knows I said thank you.
That's right.
Right.
And I think that changes, or that is dependent on the size of the company.
Absolutely
right?
right.
The larger the company, the more often that is the case. The smaller the company, you're going to be talking to the same people who are going to interview you, who are going to hire you, who are going to walk you through the HR process.
Yeah. And I think, as Jim mentioned too, that persistence, even if it doesn't work out this time around, if you aren't the one final candidate chosen out of 900, go visit them next year at the next career fair, or, keep an eye on Handshake if they're hiring for any other positions.
So we want to finish off, kind of round it off with a couple of questions that we got from students, particularly regarding all of their career things. And the first one is, should students talk to career services before accepting offers?
Ideally, yes. And mostly just to make sure that you have looked thoroughly through the entire offer and that everything makes sense to you. I always tell students, if you have any pending questions, go get them clarified, because you need to be very clear what you are signing your name to. So it's kind of a big decision that you're making, and we can help you kind of parse through all of the different details and elements of an offer.
And I would add, we have career coaches, which are students who work in our office. We don't want students with these job offers to talk to our career coaches, but we want them to talk to the Melissas and the professional staff, because it is complicated. It is essentially a contract.
Yeah.
There's an alphabet soup of what a 401k is and what your medical benefits are, and contracts and bonuses and all these other kind of things. And for many students, this is the first or second contract they've ever signed in their life, right? So you want to make sure you know what you're putting your name to before you do it. And when we talk about seasons in our office, we spend a lot of time getting ready for the career fair, and then hopefully a month later we're talking to all sorts of students about job offers, right? It's kind of switch gears and move to the next season.
Yeah, and this is where salary negotiation can come in as well, so we can talk through the details on if there's room to negotiate the salary as well.
And in terms of Career Fair and Career Fest, a student was wondering if all majors at Michigan Tech are represented at Career Fair, and which are those that are represented the most.
Yeah, I think, it's not a surprise that we're a STEM school, right? And you're most likely to talk to somebody who's a mechanical engineering alumni who wanted to get a chip back to Houghton to recruit and get their pizza from the Ambo and get their beer from the KBC, right? So they sign up to be on the recruiting team. The positions that they will have open are whatever positions the company has open at that time. So you see the companies, and there's a lot of companies that come here every year to the career fair. You can probably go back 10 years and find this same core 75% of the companies that just always come. So what majors are represented? I like to say all majors are represented, but it's the openings that the company has at the time now, right? And if you think about the company's perspective, again, they're registering for the career fair 6 months ago. They come to the career fair and they're trying to hire somebody in May. So they're trying to predict the future about how many open positions and what are they going to be in, 14 months from now, right? Which is roughly impossible, right? So we talk to companies a lot about keeping that updated. You do sometimes get the impression, you talk to this recruiter, and we coach recruiters all the time, and Melissa mentioned before about telling people to go apply online. These recruiters are not experts in every open position at the company. And so if you come in and you're a forestry major and you're talking to this mechanical engineer who works for this company, says, I don't know anything about that job. I know it's open. We encourage you to apply. That sounds like you're getting blown off by the recruiter, but the recruiter is a subject matter expert in some narrow subset. So a lot of changes this year. Sort of a second answer to that question is we are doing some different virtual fairs and some different custom fairs. So like forestry, there's a natural resources career fair. It's a smaller event that happens in the forestry building. We're doing a college of business career fair. We're doing a virtual fair for biomedical engineering. So as we see I guess I would call them underrepresented majors. That may not be the right term.
Air quotes.
Majors that seem like they're sort of undersubscribed with people appearing on campus. That's what we're trying to do to address that, to make sure there's opportunity.
For sure.
I'm going to throw in the last question, which is going to stir the pot a little bit, especially for international students. Melissa, you and I have talked about this at length, which is, and a question that we get quite a lot is, if in the application it talks about needing sponsorship, what should students respond to this? And I know you laughed at it. We've all kind of giggled at it because it's a question that we get a lot, and I don't think that there's a finite answer to it.
I know.
But from the experts, what do we
This is
think?
being recorded.
The lights seem awfully bright all of a sudden.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to take a step back. Personally, I feel it's not fair to be asked, do you need sponsorship now, or will you need it in the future? Those two questions, in my opinion, need to be separated because it's half yes and half no. So if you were to answer no to that question, you run the risk of being perceived as somebody who is dishonest, because it is true that right now you have CPT and OPT, so Michigan Tech is the sponsor for up to 3 years after graduation, potentially, right? So in that case, you do not need sponsorship now. But will you need it in the future once your OPT runs out? Yes, you will. So if they have that question separated, then one is, no, I don't need it now. Yes, I will need it in the future. To me, that's very straightforward and honest. So then, conversely, if you were to say, to answer yes to that initial question when they're combined, then you run the risk of not being accepted at all for an interview, right? Being overlooked because they don't want to kind of run that whole process of working with sponsorship. So that is always a tough one, but I do think in good conscience, a person could say no, and then be able to explain to the person afterward what that actually means. Many recruiters, to be fair, don't really understand that whole process. And so again, to give them a little bit of grace, it's more of them needing to be educated on what sponsorship really means, what OPT, CPT really means. Yeah, they don't have a lot of that information readily available to them.
And I do have one more question, not from the students, it's from me, because she hasn't been mentioned yet this episode, and I know we have to. Once again, we have Farida, our producer here. She started in the spring, so this will be her first experience of a fall career fair. Will you be attending career fair, Farida?
Yes, I will be.
I'm glad to hear it. And where are you going to go for resources if you have any questions?
The Career Services website.
Yeah. Speaking of which, how can students get to Handshake, or where on the website can they find this information?
Yeah, so every student at Michigan Tech who is enrolled already has a Handshake account. You just have to go in and activate it. So using your SSO, your sign-on information that you use for everything else at Michigan Tech, you use those same credentials to log into Handshake. Fill out the profile, complete that profile, because Handshake is like a LinkedIn for college students. So the employers who are on there, they are offering internships, co-ops, and true entry-level positions because their focus is on college students. So if you fill out your profile completely, you have all of your information on there. It makes it easier for recruiters to find students as well. So similar to LinkedIn, it goes both ways. A student can use it to search for jobs, but then recruiters use it to search for students for different positions. So definitely do that. Our website is
.edu/career.
Thank you. And that's just more general information for students on that. Also, Handshake is where you make an appointment with a one-on-one appointment with a career advisor. So I just really want to stress the importance of getting on Handshake. I think that's the biggest thing and the greatest place to get the information that students need.
Yeah.
Ooh. A lot of information.
Yes.
We really thank both of you. Like I said, our sister department, Career Services, is chock full of people that are wonderful and really are committed to helping you kind of get through that Michigan Tech journey and starting off your career at the right foot. But it sounds like it's a lot of planning. It sounds like it's a lot of pregame to know and do your research and homework. And I think our students are really great at doing all those sorts of things, and definitely not being afraid to go to career services and ask for help and say, you know, I don't know how to get started. But we really thank you both for your time and everything that you guys do for the international students, specifically when it comes to them being able to obtain employment.
Yeah, and definitely check out the Career Fair and Career Fest, or the Super Bowl, as you could say. I have to put in Go Pack Go. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Christian and Farida. And we will, yes, of course. Yeah, and we will see you in our next episode of the Talk a Latte podcast.
This has been an IPS production with Michigan Tech University. If you would like to be featured in a future episode, reach out to us at ips@mtu.edu or come to our office in the administration building. Bye!